You do not need money to be attractive. Do you really think women, society as a whole, reward those that just work hard for money?
The socioeconomic status of a woman is almost determines almost zero of her attractiveness towards a man. Whereas the socioeconomic status of a man is a major determinant of his attractiveness towards a woman. And it isn't his wealth either, because that's been tested. It's his capacity to generate and be productive and to share, because that beats the hell out of wealth. Wealth can disappear, right?
I see men acting more like Barbie dolls these days, all sat in groups, shades on, smoking a cigar, with zero purpose.
This video is a direct response to my How to Become Attractive video, which I'll put somewhere here. Even though I knew that I'm still like getting into the whole video content creation thing, that there were going to be negative comments, but I didn't think the comments were going to be, I agree with you, but you also need money to be attractive. And I was just sitting there like, what? So I did not expect this sort of deflection. Deflection, if you don't know, in psychology, it means basically someone raising a problem and then another person basically saying, yeah, but this, but that, oh, I can't do this because of that, oh, I cannot take your advice because of some external factor. Basically just pushing blame onto something completely unrelated, you know? It's sort of like if someone says, get a job, and I say, oh, I can't, I don't have a car. I can just walk, I can cycle, I can do like all of these things, I can take the bus. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. There are mainly 5 things that make you attractive to women. Some of this I've pulled from my own experience, some of this is that I've analyzed other people. It's confidence, status, or how you carry yourself. And then there's charisma, or how I like to call it, your ability to bullshit. There is your looks, and the last one is your wealth. A lot of people think that if they focus on their wealth only, then they get all the women and all the attention and all the fame and everything in the world. That's not the case. Imagine if you worked hard for like 10 years on a business and you focused solely on building wealth and you didn't focus on status, confidence, charisma, any of those other things. What do you do now? Like, how do you actually get your dream girl now? You have a good business, money, maybe you even outsource some of the actual activities that you need to do on a daily basis, so you have all this free time. What do you do now? Do you just start working out now that you're like 30? Do you start building your confidence up now that you're 30? No! By the way, this is something I find very, very funny, particularly where I live. There's a lot of young guys that actually buy themselves like really fancy cars. They buy the cheapest car they can find that looks good, basically. And usually it ends up being like a BMW 535, or, you know, a shitty old BMW that looks good on the outside because there's a lot of money been invested into toning and like paint jobs and rims. But, you know, like inside it kind of sucks, okay? It just requires so much effort to actually be able to drive on the road. And why do they do it? They don't do it because they actually have like the super hard on for cars. They do it for women. And I find it so funny because imagine if you're that guy who's balding, you are out of shape, you lack confidence, you don't know how to talk to women, you've never learned all of these necessary skills, and you have a fancy car. What do you do now? Do you just pull up to a parking lot where you see girls and say, hey, come to my car, I have money?
They went out and bought some shoes with tassels and the cheapest Rolex so that they could complete the new wanky fuckboy image.
I find it kind of insulting, even in a way. I looked at those comments and I did some hyper analysis, and I came to the conclusion that these guys are probably young, because otherwise they wouldn't have even clicked on the video. So I have no clue where this idea comes from that you need money in order to be attractive to women. I mean, yeah, money definitely helps once you have all your other things dialed in. If you are attractive enough without money, then yeah, adding in money, it's kind of like the cherry on top. But if the entire cake is made of horse shit and you add that cherry on top, well, it's still a cake of horse shit, right? I just made the wild assumption that these guys are probably Tate fans, because Tate kind of has this sort of vibe going on for him where he sort of glorifies like being rich and being wealthy and how he gets so many women because of that. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with Tate. I actually think he's very inspiring and he's built something amazing. But the guys that follow Tate, they completely misunderstand the message. If you actually look at Tate's journey, he didn't start making money until he had women. He literally made money running a camgirl business. If he had 0 women, he would have never gotten rich, okay? Or maybe he would have actually like figured out some other business method to become rich, but you can see where I'm going with this, right? Tate was able to get all these women without having money. He had status, aka being the world champion kickboxer. He had charisma, aka the ability to just talk and to bullshit. He had confidence, which all stemmed from, guess what? Looks. He had looks. He was extremely in shape. I don't want to like say attractive because that's gonna sound gay, but he had all these four except for wealth in check, and then he started making wealth. So he is actual living proof that you do not need money to be attractive to women, right? My entire point of that video, if you haven't already checked it out, I suggest you do. My entire point was basically just get in shape, right? If you're obese or fat, get lean, you know, fix your jawline, etc. Grow a beard if you have to, right? And if you're skinny, then just bulk up, right? Gain some muscle. That was my entire point. There are so many ways you can actually become more attractive. Like I could talk about confidence all day. I could talk about charisma all day, you know? I could talk about the ability to bullshit your way into any successful situation, right? Like I've bullshitted my way into basically everything. For an example, a job interview, right? And I have zero competence in the field, but I just bullshit my way in. In school, a teacher asks me like, why haven't you done this? I bullshit my way out of it. I've always been extremely good at bullshitting, and I just like to call it charisma, right? So Andrew had all of these things, and he was able to achieve attractiveness to women throughout maximizing all of these other aspects. And then he started making money, right? I don't necessarily suggest doing that. I don't suggest you start hoarding all these women and starting like a cam girl business. I do have a couple people that I know in the OFM space, which stands for OnlyFans Management, by the way. And these are not smart people. They would probably be beaten by a third grader at anything really. But these guys have charisma, they have confidence, they have looks, they have all of these things, and they are able to attract women throughout those and then make them work basically, right? I don't condone any of this stuff, but if you maximize all of these other four aspects besides wealth or money, then you can actually start focusing on making money, because it becomes so much easier. If people take you more seriously because you're in shape, people take you more seriously because you have some sort of status, you're like knowledgeable in something, you know, Tate was knowledgeable in fighting, for an example. All of a sudden, all the doors when it comes to anything fighting related were open to him, right? Like he could have easily been the next Joe Rogan, essentially, you know? Like just make a podcast talking about fighting and make money throughout that, right? My point is, become competent in something, gain confidence through either that competence or just simply your looks, whatever makes you confident, essentially. Do not focus on making money. Make enough that you can actually support the lifestyle that allows you to maximize these four aspects of your life. Confidence, charisma, status, looks, right? And then you add in the wealth. I didn't make this thumbnail simply because I wanted to gain clicks. I made this thumbnail for a reason, right? I was going to talk about Tate a lot because I think he's a good example of how you actually don't need money to get attention and to gain attraction, right? You really don't. If you want to be known worldwide, even then you don't really need money, you just need a good story, right? So a good juxtaposition next to Tate would be Mark Zuckerberg, for an example. These two people are actually only similar in the fact that they are wealthy. Imagine if you took 100 girls off the street, anywhere from 18 to 30, for an example, and you make sure that these girls aren't like, you know, major Tate haters or major Mark Zuckerberg haters. Like, they should not be biased, right? They shouldn't think that Tate is like a sex trafficker, murderer, rapist, whatever. And they also shouldn't think that Mark Zuckerberg is a reptile. So if you took these 100 girls and gave them 2 pictures and said, this is the net worth, this is the net worth, this is what they're capable of, this is their status, this is what they did, blah, 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 right? And you put them side by side, you have all the information available. How many do you think would pick Zuckerberg over Tate? Like seriously, think about it for a moment. Zuckerberg has a net worth much, much higher than Tate's. If money is all that mattered, then logically every girl should go for Zuckerberg, right? And if you did this experiment in the real world, probably then they would choose Zuckerberg over Tate because they all think Tate killed girls and raped girls and drugged girls and whatever. But let's just imagine for a second that we live in a perfect world where people actually know what's going on, right? I can bet my left nut on this that 80% at least would pick Tate. If we just look at the physique difference, if we look at the talking style difference, the charisma difference, the confidence difference, everything goes towards the actual masculine guy versus the guy that has more money. This brings us back to this balding guy with a massive stomach pulling up in a Corvette next to teenage girls and being like, hey, hop in. What type of girls do you think would hop in? The girls that want a guy with a dad bod? No. The gold diggers hop in. So if you're a guy who thinks wealth is everything in terms of attraction, then you're just gonna attract gold diggers. And if you are into those types of girls, just click off this video. This video isn't for you. This video is for guys that want to maximize every other aspect of their life while still not neglecting wealth, but not focusing on that solely. You have to have balance over all of these 5 things, right? I've been guilty of focusing on one of these at a time too much. For example, at one point I focused on building my body up. At one point I focused on confidence too much. I let my body go. And at one point I focused on making money too much, and I made some money. I made a lot of money, and I'm still making money off the business that I made, but I let myself go. So you can see where the balance comes in, right? Women aren't attracted to the guy that is necessarily rich. Women are mostly, especially young women, are attracted to the guy who is already maximizing all these other aspects and has huge goals. And I can say this from experience, I got the most amount of attention from women when I was a broke college kid. I mean, I had skills, you know, I had like charisma, I had confidence, I had like a decent looking body, but I had no money. But I did have like huge goals of making money, you know, huge goals of becoming a man with status. And girls just flocked to me because of that. Like, I'm not comparing myself to Tate by no means, but you can see what my point is, right? So when you say that in order to be attractive, you need money too, I would argue that you necessarily don't need money. You just need to evaluate what kind of girls you want to attract. You want to attract the girls that are in it for the long run. The girls that see potential in you, potential for greatness in you. And you know, life isn't all about girls, by the way. You also need connections, you need to be trusted by people, you need to be charismatic, and you need to be confident, and you need to be all of these things. You just need to build a network of trustworthy people that you can rely on, right? And you don't get those people if you are fat, zero confidence, no charisma, and you just focus on grinding all day, making money with your 5th failed business idea. You don't get that. You really don't. Take it from me, who went through it, and I learned my lesson, and here I am talking to you about this. Please just focus on the right things in life. You will find your path much faster when you don't focus on one thing at a time. I hope this video was helpful. I'm sorry if this was a bit hard to follow because, again, this is unscripted. I'm just talking out of my heart because I'm passionate about this. But if you found this video helpful, share it with someone who might find it useful as well. And remember, fly high.